Greetings. I fulfilled my project on a public health concern. Some of the worst wildfires may take place this season in the Southeastern region of the United States. This is Week 9 assignment, Intervention Communication Plan. My name is Susan Hernandez. I am taking MPH 5506, Behavioral Foundations in Public Health, with Dr. Ruther, June 16, 2025. Wildfires in the Miami-Dade area near an 18-mile stretch of US 1 provoked smoky condition impacting the air quality within the city in the recent past. Shifting winds were predicted to affect ambient air quality conditions while pushing smoke into metropolitan areas of Miami-Dade County. Presently, the Air Quality Index, AQI, for Miami-Dade is classified in the average gamut for particulate matter, PM 2.5. AQI may reach a radius of PM 2.5 in the unhealthy for sensitive groups listing due to shifting winds. Young children, seniors, expectant mothers, individuals with respiratory disorders, and people who strenuously exercise are advised to be heedful as they may be susceptible to particulate matter pollution. Spence 2025. Additionally, the commonality of prescribed burns in Florida are known all too well as a natural resource for land managers. Managers opt for these prescribed burns to gentrify fire-dependent ecosystems, augment for cattle to take nourishment, upgrade wildlife natural terrain, adapting sites replantation, and minimizing iffy fuel loads. Prescribed burns pros are amassing benefits for ecology and people. Prescribed burns cons are they potentially affect the public via smoke. Smoke is a composite of water, vapor, carbon dioxide, and igniting compounds involving tiny particles of organic matter. Some of the most highly sensitive people to smoke exposure are individuals with pre-existing conditions like pulmonary and respiratory diseases. Persons suffering from health conditions above the age of 65 are typically more at risk from poor air quality. An estimated 21.5 million residents, 21%, are over 65, correlated to 16% of the countrywide average. Approximately 30% of the populace is above 65 in some countries, making prescribed fire smoke management vital in Florida. Monroe et al., 2022. Research studies indicate hospital visits usually increment amid extended time spans with smoke predisposition induced by wildfires. Problem and plan overview continued. Individuals vulnerable to smoke are apprised to dispense with outdoor activities, utilize indoor HEPA air filtration systems, and count N95 type masks among one's possessions to lessen their exposure to PM. To dwindle smoke clashes to sensitive regions, the Florida Forest Service, FFS, staff execute computer models to forecast smoke production and movement prior to granting prescribed burn permits. FFS utilizes AQI to decipher whether burn permits should be issued. Prescribed burn managers can perform smoke modeling operating various free computer-based models. on their end, encompassing simple smokescreen tool. Florida certified burners are certified by FFS to curtail the likelihood of prescribed wildland fires, will affect sensitive zones like roadways, schools, hospitals, and airports. Why should wildfires be addressed? Lowering respiratory ailments. By diminishing the incidence and gravity of wildfires, exposure of Florida residents to these perilous pollutants is abated, leading to rarer cases of respiratory ailments and healthier lung function. Safeguarding vulnerable populations. Addressing bushfires keeps vulnerable groups from undergoing critical health problems and attenuates the devoir on the healthcare system. Curbs cardiovascular aftermaths. Shortening bushfire frequency and intensity may preempt cardiovascular events and enhance heart health collectively for the Florida populace. Assuaging mental health impacts. Addressing the bushfire problem assists in preventing mental health effects while supporting the well-being of our communities. Decreasing interminable health risks. Overarching health risks are dwindled, helping form a healthier future for Floridians by targeting the issue of wildfires. St. James School of Medicine, 2025. The above-mentioned public health millages exemplify a vigorous and persuasive ranking. First, wildfire diminution efforts. The following slide contains a picture denoting how wildfires affect the land. Also, I included an additional picture which reads, "Enjoy Florida's forests, leave the fireworks at home." Socioeconomic and behavioral determinants impacting the problem and population. Socioeconomic determinants. Poverty and socioeconomic status. That is, low-income families are more susceptible to negative effects of bushfires attributable to inadequate housing, social exclusion, and scanty resources. Age and health. Seniors and disabled persons with restricted motion make them vulnerable to wildfire smoke and powerless to handle a crisis. Housing type. Mobile home residents are frequently more susceptible because of greater exposure to harm during fires and accelerated fire spread within these frameworks. Race and ethnicity. Research demonstrates minority groups to be subjected to disaster impacts involving wildfires owing to cultural and systemic inequities receiving support. Language barriers. Limited English proficiency may hamper individuals from executing instructions, as well as access to transportation. Households without personal transportation may encounter obstacles to rapid evacuation and summoning emergency services. Sun et al., 2024. Socioeconomic and behavioral determinants impacting the problem and population continued. As far as behavioral determinants, human-caused ignitions. Almost 8 out of 10 bushfires in Florida are human-caused. That is to say, recreational fire escapes, debris burning escapes, prescribed fire burning, forest fires, and arson. Risk perception and preparedness. Increased alertness, community involvement, ill health are linked to heightened subjective probability of wildfire. Otherwise, belief in personal immunity may result in sufficient mitigation behaviors. Social interactions. Social exchange may determine how individuals evaluate risk analysis data. Communication effectiveness. Access to relevant and clear information about wildfire hazards is essential for sensitizing and promoting risk reduction behaviors. Evacuation decisions. Determinants like being male, working class, basic education, mature citizen, incapacitated, co-residing in a multi-generational household makes evacuation less feasible. Brenner, no date. Current resources or lack thereof, gaps and barriers related to improving health. In Florida, enhancing health and optimizing resources related to forest fire confronts difficulty and gaps. 1. Scarce funding and resource constraints. Insufficient funding, furtherance of critical initiatives like ecological restoration and wildfire fuel management, deficient due to shortage of funds as well as irregular funding and headcount volume. 2. Barriers to forest fire risk management, fuel development, urbanization, social, technical, and institutional barriers. Integrated fire management, IFM, contends with intricate problems driven by factors namely amendment to land development regulations, fuels, weather, and topography. 3. Health-specific gaps include, but are not limited to, public health messaging, multifaceted predicament, individual health, threats such as air quality, defiled water. Additional studies are required to understand the potential post-wildfire water contamination and to ameliorate public health conditions. 4. Opportunities for improvement involve targeted messaging, research, and understanding and leveraging resources like fire management, assistance grant program, Vian et al., 2024. Evidence-based intervention plan. Interventions and implementation plans for wildfires in Florida incorporate 1. Florida Forest Service, FFS, implements several programs like the Be Wildfire Ready Florida and a plan to implement prescribed fires. Seamless integration with agencies like U.S. Department of the Interior is climacteric. States, tribes, local communities, private landowners, and partners. Fire-adapted communities is a joint effort, one that is a multi-stakeholder collaboration. 2. On account of wildfire susceptibility year-round, community strategies are carried out throughout Florida, especially Wildland Urban Interface, WUI, communities wherein homes are intertwined with wildlands and thus are high risk. Also, fire safety education initiative takes place at schools and other local groups. 3. Intervention activities such as wildfire prevention education, building defensible space, reporting wildfires or arson, utilizing herbicides for fuel reduction, using prescribed burning, and youth's fire setting intervention programs. Psychological factors influencing behavior are knowledge, perceived susceptibility, the health belief model in terms of severity, and confidence in the ability to create change. Simpson, 2025. Communication strategies for creating buy-in and engagement for internal audience leadership groups. Community wildfire mitigation guiding principles are paramount for efficient work within the communities. They are primordial to incrementing local capacity. The mitigation guiding principles are engagement, reliable connections in a solid foundation of trust, and in-person interaction are the cornerstone of success. Prioritize in-person communication whenever possible. Messaging, electronic mail, digital marketing campaign, and involvement are not the same. Messaging should not be used in place of direct communication. Also, target urgent to moderate priority populations and marginalized communities. In addition, forge alliances and cultivate synergy beyond national borders and jurisdictions. Readily available mitigation support to people experiencing poverty. Focal point results driven over outputs. Capitalizing on resources. Be adept. Know your communities and mitigating risks through concentrated effort. Sustained strategic direction, fastidious and concentrated. Be versatile and adjustable. Scrutinize your assumptions. Coco, 2024. The next slide contains an illustration of the previous slide concerning mitigation guiding principles. Communication strategies of cultural values for building of the intervention within the Southeast. By integrating intercultural communication encompassing public participation, wildfire resilience programs can successfully promote widespread and inclusive access, investing in a more secure and resilient Florida. This can be achieved by 1. Cultural tailoring and adaptation, embracing the historical use of fire, highlighting the historical use of fire in Florida through which Native American and pioneers like the Seminole tribe grasped its beneficial impact on vegetation and wildlife. 2. Community engagement in planning, accomplished by empowering residents, coaching and resources, facilitating resident preparedness, and creating defensible space for contingency planning, for example. 3. Articulate, impactful communication. Diversify communication methods via applying diverse techniques like signs, demonstrations, social media campaigns, and civic conferences to connect with the masses. Broyle, 2017. Communication strategies. How external stakeholders will benefit. 1. Add benefits to external stakeholders by means of reduced health impacts, preserving property, natural resources, and lives, and ensuring reliance of clean water. 2. Stakeholder relationship management communications. Olson et al. 2014 expresses proactive crisis communication by way of community warning systems. Inaugurate, broadcast, and conduct occasional checks on community warning systems. Ensure eloquent interpersonal skills under active listening during crisis events. The cost of conducting wildfire prescription in Florida is a lot less expensive than to address them when conditions and locations are unpropitious. To avoid a fly in the ointment, be equipped with facts and preparedness. Costs to prescribe a fire in Florida, $42 per acre. Labor cost is about $1,000 a day for 4 trainees. Average size of seminal wildfires is namely 50 acres. The same acreage burn is $3,100 per day. Price range to suppress a wildfire entailing equipment, staff, and resources varies among $8,000 to $10,000 a day. Broil, 2017. The amounts to consider are budget-friendly, bargain-priced, and worth the money in relevance of what the fire threatens. The following slide contains an image of Smokey the Bear promoting to ensure the safety of the Sunshine State. Literacy strategies contained in a 1-page flyer. Page 1. The image of Smokey the Bear reads, "Always hold matches till cold. Be sure to drown all fires. Crush all smokes that out. Please, only you can prevent forest fires." Within the flyer on page 1, note, an estimated 21.5 million residents are sensitive to smoke in Florida. Stay alert. Kindly follow these recommendations. Circumscribe outdoor activities and remain in air-conditioned ambience, especially if you have respiratory problems. Avoid exercises or strenuous chores that heave the lungs and heart, indoors or outdoors. Inhabit indoors with an operational air conditioning and recirculation mode. Replace air conditioner filter at home with a new one. Maintain vehicle windows closed whenever driving in a region affected by smoke and set air conditioning to recirculate. Depart from the zone until the smoke has dissipated. Do not escalate indoor air pollution. Give a wide berth to vacuuming using candles, fireplaces, or gas stoves. Do not smoke. Take all medications following your doctor's orders. Contact your medical provider if you are concerned about your health or if your health worsens. The next slide is, once again, literacy strategies. 1-page flyer. This time it's page 2 of the flyer. Again, with an image of Smokey the Bear, as well as a pile of books to encourage safety first. Measures to undertake for prescribed burning periods. Burn limited amount to adhere to management goals. Postpone burns as weather permits, and fuel moisture ecological context draws breath. Complete bushfires rapidly and douse smoking supply prior to twilight. Notify neighbors of scheduled burn and render data to nearby communities on actions to mitigate smoke exposure, along with a specific emphasis on at-risk individuals of smoke-related health impacts. For more information, the flyer also contains a website. It's https://www.fdacs.gov/forest wildfire wildland fire prescribed fire certified prescribed fire acreage. Intervention outcomes, initial measures. Gauging the preliminary performance of wildfire management in Florida requires a few chief facets to monitor and appraise, calling for acres treated, fuel reduction, timely response, fire occurrence rates, fire behavior. This, of course, demands a definitive, successful realization appertaining to using fire-resistant building materials, preserving life and property, and reinforces enduring renewable environment for sustainability of Florida's pine flatwoods, scrub, sandhills, and wet prairie, fire-maintained ecosystems. Hostetler, no date. Intervention outcomes, program outcomes. To foreground the outcomes of wildfires in Florida, the succeeding programs protect environmental stewardship and ecosystem services for human well-being. As an example, agencies like Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, St. Johns River Water Management District, Ready, Set, Go, the Florida Forest Service, watermatters.org, 2018. The aforementioned agencies and programs extend forest management, ecological betterment, and habitat restoration, economic benefits, mass education, and successful controlled burn. Conclusion. In conclusion, wildfires affect Florida and other regions in the country. Wildfires, reverberations can be prevented when we gear ourselves with awareness and the knowledge of how to respond. It is only by educating ourselves, informing the community, respecting Mother Earth, and being excellent to each other that wildfires may subside. Prioritizing a safer Gaia by treating the world like our home. Last but not least, we have reached the resources slide. Thank you for joining me. Have a great week and a wonderful summer.